we will have it on recording, right? So welcome everyone once again. I know most folks are not new on here. We have a lot of Eretmis family members on here. So we do this every Friday night. Is brought to you by Eretmis Academy, and the goal behind this is to help spread the word about cybersecurity, educate ourselves about cybersecurity careers, and also techniques and tricks of how to protect ourselves in the cyberspace. And tonight we have a special guest, like I said earlier. We are privileged to have Naomi, one of our own. She's going to share her story about what she's doing on the job and, her whole career switch, how she went about it and what even prompted her to go that route. Right. So you are welcome. You are welcome to Eretmis Academy. Eretmis Academy is the organization sponsoring this cyber chat every night. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Edu. I'll be your facilitator as usual. I'm a former United States captain. I'm a former United States Army captain. I'm the CEO of Eretmis Inc., a cybersecurity consulting firm based out of New York, and a QSA company as well. I'm a QSA myself, and we do everything cybersecurity, including performing PCI DSS assessments on organizations, right? And I'm a former professor at University of Maryland Global Campus and CTC, and I'm the founder of Eretmis Academy. So you are all welcome. We are going to move on to cyber chat. And for cyber chat, we have some processes that we go through before we get to our actual main event. So we are Eretmis Academy is a partner of is an authorized partner of CompTIA, and because of that, we have 20% on any voucher that you want to purchase with CompTIA for exam. So any CompTIA exam, we have 20% that we give out to everybody who participates in cyber chat and also who is part of the Eretmis family, right? So if you are looking into writing any of these certification exams from CompTIA, just reach out to us. We will give you the 20% discount that we have, right? And that is if you purchase the voucher through us, right? And we are not doing this in any shape or form because we get any commissions or anything. Our commission is the 20%, right? We just do it to help the community. At least when you came to cyber chat, you got something out of it, right? And also for continuous education, if you have certifications, cybersecurity certifications, IT certifications, every 3 years you have to recertify. So during the recertification process, you can choose to either write the exam or to use continuous education points to meet the certification requirements. And for CompTIA, they do that. All other certifications, they do that. This program, the Eretmis Cyber Chat that we have, that we host every Friday night, you are able to use that towards your continuous education to certify. We have a couple of Eretmis members on here who have been using it to certify when it comes to their 3-year term. Now, we have our big Eretmis cybersecurity group. So if you're not part of it, we'll post in the link. When you join it, it's a pretty fun group. We do everything. It's just purely cybersecurity, right? So for cyber chats like this, all links will be posted in there. And for any other activities that we are having within the Eretmis space, you'll be able to partake in it, right? And then also we have a YouTube channel. We are transmitting this right now on the YouTube channel. So if you couldn't join, you could also watch on YouTube as well, right? So subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have a lot of really good info on there. There have been folks who've been learning a lot from our YouTube channel. They'll be using that to even be able to help them on the job, right? So we treat a lot of different topics, and everything that we do for cyber chat has been posted on there. We have almost like 200 videos, really good videos on there. So please check it out and subscribe and help the channel grow, right? And for so tonight we'll be looking at not cryptography, but we will be interviewing Naomi, and then we'll be looking at cyber news. And some of the programs that we had previously is what is on there because they borrowed that from the old last week's cyber chat, right? So we are jumping into cyber news. Now, for cyber news this week, I mean, there's a lot of cyber news that went on, right? But we have to pick 2 for discussion this week. OpenAI, we picked OpenAI because they have a very good news for the military folks, right? So OpenAI, apparently they had a ban. I didn't even know, like they had a ban on military and welfare applications. So you couldn't use OpenAI for anything like military but now they've lifted that ban. I think probably they were working with Pentagon, so they've removed that ban, so you can use it for some aspects of military and welfare use cases, but still you are not allowed, or they still have kind of a ban on using it to develop or use any form of weapon, right? So they have taken that away. So that is maybe a step in the right direction. Now this side, like this ban, they have to maybe probably look more into it and protect more, because AI can do a lot of things now. And last thing you want to do is for somebody to use it to develop a military weapon, or any, learn how to use maybe some military weapon, or anything on those lines, right? So that is maybe a good news for the military folks from OpenAI, the owners of ChatGPT. Now, Google is in the news again. I think for Google, a couple of cyber chats ago, getting to the end of last year, we looked at some of the vulnerabilities in Google. I think it was Google Chrome. Now, they came up with some fixes for these vulnerabilities, but there's one that is still hanging out there loosely. So Google, they fixed a couple of their zero-day vulnerabilities in their Google Chrome. But then still, I think for this vulnerability with this CVE number, it is still hanging out because they just discovered it on the 11th of January, right? And this allows attackers to be able to shut down your Google Chrome, right? I'm not sure if they'll be able to use that to get onto your system, but you can look more into it. This is the CVE number for that vulnerability. And for everybody who's been, attending cyber chat on a regular basis, last time we asked what the CVE was. I'm still going to open the floor because we are here to learn. Anybody want to chime in what the CVE is? And if somebody can also help with what a zero-day vulnerability is.
CVE is common vulnerability exposures. And zero-day vulnerability is a vulnerability that has never been discovered, or has been discovered, but there's no patch for it.
Okay. So like we were doing last week, if you can break it down into grandpa terms, right? Grandpa terms will make it easier for everybody to understand. You are too technical, Prince. Go ahead. I think Good Luck had his hand up.
Yes, I did, but the grandpa one is cracking my head.
Oh, you can't go the grandpa route. Okay. I think Sandra, I want to give it a shot. Go ahead, Sandra.
So for the common vulnerability exploits, I don't know who assigns those numbers, but I know that when a vulnerability is discovered, they are given numbers so that they can easily be identified for mitigation. Like the 2024, I assume that was discovered this 2024, and then 0501, I'm not sure what that is, but somebody assigns those numbers so that you can easily trace or track them.
Okay, yes.
And then for zero-day vulnerability, like the other speaker said, so it's a vulnerability that has not been exploited yet. So they just discovered it, and then they're still working on a patch for it.
Okay. And I'm not sure if Good Luck still want to give it a shot, because I'm still up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes. For the CVE, I would tell grandpa that this is how you measure the severity of like the danger, how dangerous this is. Like, this is how you measure the red line, okay, it's green or red, or this is gonna get worse. The symptoms. I think that's how I would put it, if I'm to break it down to grandpa.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I would say.
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to say the 0 day is a vulnerability that nobody had an idea of. And they were able to come up with. They didn't know, and it was there, a hidden vulnerability that is been explored. And the other one is what was the other term?
The CVE, like what we have right here, the CVE 2024-0519. Like what
So
does that represent?
That is something that is there and is being worked on currently.
Okay.
Everybody's aware.
Okay. All right.
It's an exposure. A possibility that, if it's not patched, it can cause harm to an enterprise.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Uche, you also want to chime in. Go ahead, Uche.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Du. What I would say is the CVE, the common vulnerabilities enumeration, it was, I believe, started by MITRE, and it's exchanged various hands with various organizations. The first part is the year, and then the second several digits is numeric numbers they assign into their catalog. So every vulnerability has a unique number, the year, and then the numbers that follow it. And then 0 day, I would just say, to make it as simple as possible, to say it's a hole in an application that has not been fixed.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we will move on. Now for the CVE numbers, right? All known vulnerabilities. Ucheba, okay, go ahead. I'll let you have the floor last, and then I'll move forward. Go ahead, Ucheba.
Okay, the CVE 2024-05 update is the most common up-to-date vulnerabilities for a specific vulnerabilities.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Roger, go ahead. I said Ucheba, but Roger, your hand is up, so you're
so I
gonna
would
be
say
the
that
last person for it. Go ahead.
Okay, zero-day vulnerabilities refer to a security flaw in software or hardware that is not known to the vendor or to the public.
Okay. Yes. Very much so. Thank you very much. So we will move on now just to break down CVE. And so for all vulnerabilities, and if you're not very cybersecurity savvy, vulnerability is simply a weakness in our system, right? So a weakness that attackers can use to get onto our system, our network, our phones, our computers, right? And that weakness, we call it vulnerability. Now, for all known vulnerabilities, right, just like all known sicknesses have a name, all known sicknesses have a name, right? If there's a sickness that just popped up, we have to find a name and give that name to that sickness. Same thing here. All known vulnerabilities, they have a name. This is their name right here. Their CVE number is their name. And we name it based on the year, and then like the numbers back here are just numbers they give them as they are discovered, right? Is the National Vulnerability Database run by NIST. They are the ones who give these vulnerability numbers, or the CVE numbers, right? So if you want to find out all the vulnerabilities in the world, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, or just software, hardware vulnerabilities that exist, if you go to NIST, National Vulnerability Database, NVD, you'll be able, there's a whole catalog of all vulnerabilities, all known, keyword, all known vulnerabilities. So if a 0 day has been discovered, it has to go through the National Vulnerability Database for them to give it a name, which is going to be the CVE, and that will be part of the known vulnerabilities. Now, for a 0 day vulnerability, simply weakness in a system that has just been discovered, and the owners of that system or the owners of the software, they have not been able to provide a way of solving that problem or patching. So when we say patch, finding a countermeasure that mostly, if it is the software, it will be in a form of an update, to cover that hole that has been discovered in the software or in their system, right? So a 0 day, we call it 0 day because it has just been discovered. Now it will remain a 0 day until a solution has been found for it. Just like if there is a disease that we just discovered, until we find a solution to that, or we find a drug that can cure it, it's still going to remain a 0-day disease, right? So if we find a solution to it, then it's no more a 0-day. We take it out of the 0-day list, right? But for the numbering, or for the labeling it, we label it to make it easy for us to refer to it, and everybody will know what we are referring to. Just like if there were no names for any diseases, and we all, so how are you going to refer to it? Oh, the disease that makes you look like this or look like that. I mean, that would be very hard for us to really determine what is what. So this is a way for us to identify unknown vulnerabilities. Sandra, go ahead.
So do the 0-day after they've got the patches and everything, is that when they get a CVE number after that?
No. So once it has been discovered, national vulnerability, because once it has been discovered, we know it already. So it is a known vulnerability, right? But it will remain a 0-day vulnerability until we find a patch, right? So the national vulnerability database, once it has been discovered, regardless of who discovered it, once it gets to them, they get to know it, they will look into it and then give it a number, right? Because once we know it, right? So they don't wait until there's a patch. I mean, for this one that we are looking at right here, there's no patch for it, but then we have a CVE number. All right, so we are going to move on. So from Cyber Chat, we were just going to jump straight into our interview and learn about some cool stuff that Naomi is doing. So if Naomi is ready, we are going to start. Naomi, time now, right? So before we move on, I'm going to give a little story about our encounter with Naomi and how how she's doing now. So it's a very interesting story. So like everybody on here knows, I talk to everybody, and I love talking to people. I love helping to people. So out of my busy schedule, maybe you wouldn't get me on first, second try, but eventually we will talk. Right? And everybody on here can attest to that. So I had a call one day, a young lady. Hey, I was calling because I found Eretmis Academy in the New York area online. Do you guys do cybersecurity training? I'm like, yeah, sure, we do. So, what do you do? Why do you want to do cybersecurity? Well, I just completed high school, and I'm working, and I don't want to go to college. So, I was trying to see something that would be more flexible and maybe probably pay me more. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So you're on the right place. So I directed her to the free course for her to take, and then she can go ahead and register if she likes the whole setup and everything. And the next I heard from her, she had enrolled and she's in the course, moving through. They didn't hear from her again. Next time I heard from her, she's like, hey, I want to sit for Security Plus. So do you have any material? I'm like, yeah, sure. Gave her some practice tests. She came back. Oh, I scored 800. I think it was 800 or 820. Some crazy. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Wow. Right. That is like the highest score we've had so far. Like, okay. So Naomi just disappears, and then she'll come up with something. Hey, do you have a template for resume? I'm like, yeah, sure, here. Next I heard, oh, I got a job. Like, what? I mean, we didn't discuss anything, no job. How? I mean, how is she pulling this off with all that magic stuff she's doing? And then that was it. I'm like, what? So ever since since I spoke to her for the first time, having spoken to her again is just tests. And even the test is just like, hey, I want this. Okay, here it is. Good, thank you. And then that's it. Like, wow. I mean, Naomi is something else. So she's here today to unveil the whole mystery. Even I am perplexed. Don't know what she's doing, or I mean, what is going on. So I'm very glad she was able to make it tonight. We are going to allow her to walk us through what she's been doing behind the scenes. But before we do, Naomi, I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself, and then we will first start from what you are doing now. right? So walk us through your job on like your day-to-day, what you guys do and, girls do over there. And then we will, go back to the backstory of school and bringing it all the way to when you decided to switch. So you have the floor, Naomi. You can start with what you like. You introduce yourself, obviously, and then your role and what you are doing now as a security professional. So please, you can have the floor.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning in for my story. My name is Naomi Ain Alam. I work as a customer data privacy analyst at L'Occitane Inc. It's a French company, but it's located in Midtown Manhattan. We, as a company, for the first time, it was a position that never existed. So the position that I filled, there was no one prior to me. So I was the one who had to basically set the standards at that point. There was no other person I could, either train with or like someone's work I can look back at to see like what exactly I should work on. So it was a very new position for the company as well. So, it was kind of scary, but at the same time, it was a good thing because now I can come in with the knowledge I know to help the company and set that path. So I started working with them in November of 2022. We were audited by a third party called Wavestone, and we were graded. It was an assessment. So it was all the security vulnerabilities that we had and suggested remediation. So there's like about 100 remediations that were given back to us to probably fix within like a year or like a year and a half, not necessarily a timeline on it. However, like the sooner the better, because there's no need to, the longer you wait, the more you're just susceptible to a vulnerability. So that's where we're at. We've completed a lot so far, and every 3 to 4 months, I present to my higher ups. That would include the VPs, just the president, CEO of the company. Sometimes would either join via Teams, Zoom, or sometimes would be in a meeting room. Just a PowerPoint to show what we've done so far, because sometimes it's not an action plan that I can complete by myself with my boss. It's an action plan that would require different departments to be involved. So that would take a bit longer to remediate. In that sense, we'll have like percentages on like what we finished. We've kind of lined out the remediations by priority and like how long it would take, the executing team, and just the timeline in general, like how hard it is, putting it on a scale from 1 to 10, and go from there. So it's been good so far. I'm on a contract. I finished a year's contract, but my contract, last time I heard in January, early January, it got renewed again for another year. So we're aiming for a full-time position. So yeah, more progress. The more I do and show them like it just looks good for the company, and then they start to realize, okay, like we need to keep this assessment around. Maybe we are going to start getting audited more, probably every year or every so often, because there's so many different hackers out there now, different ways to like different employees, different ways to like access company data. So in order to make sure that's secure, it's good to work with data privacy. And I work with my boss, who is my senior. And then I also work with a local lawyer. However, our company is also based in Geneva. So I do work with the local lawyers in Geneva, as well as the local lawyers here in North America and Canada.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
yes.
So can you walk us through like your day? And are you working remotely, or is it on site?
It's hybrid, so it'd be 3 days on site and 2 days work from home.
Okay. So can you walk us through like your day to day? So you just woke up in the morning. Walk us through your day as a data privacy analyst.
Okay, yeah. So depending on if there's like
I'm sorry, I don't need to. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get her title.
Wait, please wait. We will open the floor for everybody. So like we just building, like a whole story, and then we open the floor for everybody. She mentioned her title and her company. maybe probably if you just join, you can wait once like we've gone through for her to probably talk through everything. Then like we can get back to everybody is going to have the chance to ask their own questions. All right, go ahead, Naomi, please.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So day to day, we'd probably meet with the local lawyers to see if there's any law changes, because our company did not have a specific security policy in place, whether that is for BYOD, if that's for any removable devices. So we would work with the local lawyers, have a meeting about that, and then it's a lot of meetings most of the time to come up with a plan. Either if that's a plan to come up with a new policy, a new form, make changes to the privacy policy itself. So we've also have OneTrust now. So the company didn't have a place where all documents were stored. So within OneTrust, we're now interviewing different department heads to find out what type of databases they use, what type of customer data they have access to. That could be either name, phone number, address. There's so many things. There's also opt-outs, and now we're introduced to DNS, so that's do not sell my data. Just to respect people's different opinions. We have that all being documented currently, so that's been taking about 3 months now, and we're still working on it. So day to day, like it's like if it contains PII or not, we would have to tick the box. Assets, vendors, looking over contracts to see if they've properly signed data agreement forms, and so forth. Yes.
Okay. So my next question is going to be, you are talking about audits, like you just go there, your company got audited. They got audited by who? You kind of mentioned the company, but like we just wanted to know, like what form of audit was it? Was it PCI DSS audit, or like what framework were they using for this audit? If like you were preview to that before, like they came up with all those vulnerabilities that they found, or all those gaps that they found that you have to fix. Oh, you are muted now.
I'm sorry. So the company's name was Wavestone, the third party. And the assessment was done prior to me being hired. That's when they realized they needed the position. They were like, okay, so we need somebody to focus on these remediations.
Okay. So like you are not preview to the actual assessment that they did. Okay, so that's fine. So now we are going to we know what you are like, what you do, and you've been doing it for a year, almost a year. You've walked us through your day. Now let's go back. Let's go way back a little bit. So I got to know you finished high school, you were working. Can you walk us through that process, right? When you completed high school, what was your way forward? And why all this like sudden switch into cybersecurity?
Of course. So I'm the oldest of 4. I'm originally from Texas. So I moved to New York for a change. I graduated from Texas and I came to New York. I was juggling multiple jobs. At the same time, I was going to school at BMCC. I was going to school for nursing. I had transferred my credits over from Texas to New York, BMCC. It was a lot to juggle at the same time, because now I have rent to pay. I have to help my mom, and at the same time pay for my school as well, because I was out of state, so the payment is twice as much sometimes, and I didn't really catch up on like my FAFSA documentation, so I had a lot on my plate. I was, at the time when I called you, I was working at CityMD. I was a PSR. So I was a PSR, it's a patient services representative. I was a PSR because I wanted to go into nursing. So the best way to find out if the job was really for me or not was to work in a position, like a medical setting, to see what the patients are like. And if I interact with them well enough in the front, then I can guarantee myself that I would like working with them in the back. Unfortunately, that was not true. I started working in the front and I realized how hostile a lot of patients are. Sometimes you approach them trying to help them. No matter how nice you are, no matter how bad of a day you're having, you still, you know, they're sick, they're patients after all. So you have a smile on your face and you try to help them out, but over time it starts to get very like draining when the patient is always not in a good mood, or they would either have like bad temperament, and there's just issues that were coming up. Not only that, with school, I was preparing to take my HESI test, but unfortunately I took the wrong, at the time it was COVID. So I was supposed to take a PCR test for COVID, and I took the wrong one. So I was unable to take my HESI test, but I knew I had to complete school because if it wasn't nursing school, I was going to be stuck doing, I had no idea like what else to do. So I actually saw you in pamphlet. It was a pamphlet about cybersecurity. And it was like, oh, like different cybersecurity schools in the area. At the time, I mean, I still do live in the Bronx. And I figured I searched up cybersecurity and I kind of liked the idea of it, mainly because it doesn't involve a lot of coding, because that was something I really wanted to avoid. So from there, I searched your academy, and that's when I reached out to you, because I was like hitting a wall, because if I no longer went to nursing school, I had to do something else. If I did get into nursing school, that would mean labs. So labs take 12 hours in a day. If I go to school for 12 hours in a day, I wouldn't be able to work. So I wouldn't be able to support my family nor support myself. And it was just going to like crumble down. So I realized I needed a career. And it kind of opened the door for me, because I realized sometimes you don't necessarily need a degree to go into the workplace, like just corporate in general. And I also like the fact that it was no student debt. So you have like a nice installment plan, payment plan. I was able to catch up on those without having to be in debt for thousands of dollars, yet still able to maintain the way I live. Studied on my own. I was a PSR, so I was at the front desk a lot. Patients don't come in all the time, or sometimes it's just a quick, oh, I need a COVID test. So they typically sign in on the iPad. So I was able to study and continue my courses on the computer. Yes, so in June of 2022 was when I was able to reach back out to you. I'm sorry, but it was a little late time. But I reached back out to you in June because I was reading back on my notes and I needed something more solid to like read back on, because I didn't exactly know what to expect in the test. So you offered me practice exams, which actually were really, really helpful, because a couple of those questions actually did come up in my CompTIA Security Plus exam. It was just the way that the questions are structured. Like I was able to memorize some of the questions, and it was like, I believe the practice exams you gave me were from like a couple years back to like I think 5 years back as well. So you know, most of the questions are typically recycled. So although I didn't go through all of the questions you gave me, I was able to retain most of them, go through, highlight, study those questions, and then take my exam and pass on the first try actually. So yeah, from June 2022, I got the certification and then I started my job search. It was a difficult route, kind of my fault as well, because I was trying to speed up the process of actually getting a job. So it was a lot of trial and error with most of the interviews. It's like, okay, like, have you done this before? Have you done this before? It's like, I didn't have experience at the time, and that's what most of the employers were looking for. However, through trial and error, learning from one interview to the other, I was able to find a job and land it with L'Occitane. It's a sister company of Sol de Janeiro and Eretmis and I'm sorry, Grown Alchemist. They're all, it's a skincare brand. So yeah, that's how my story was in the end.
Okay, a very interesting story. So can you walk us through the job search and the interview process? And then also for everybody, you know, when you go through entry level, once you're done, whether you take CompTIA Security Plus or not, we move you into the internship. Guess what? Naomi has not even done the internship. She's coming back to do the internship. Right.
Yeah.
So walk us through the job search process. So interviews, like how was your first interview, like second interview? How are you going about it? Learning from one interview to the other.
So landing an interview itself was a bit difficult. I mean, it wasn't difficult. It was just very tedious because there's also the cover letter that you have to fix for every job that you're applying to. The resume that you did send me a template, so I was able to work with that in order to just put my name and just make those small fixes before submitting that. I had 3 companies that actually reached out to me via interview because most of them would send back an email saying like, yeah, like your resume was good. However, like we're looking for someone with either experience and you don't have it, or sometimes they wanted the college degree itself, which was understandable. But in terms of the interview process itself, they'd ask you what you've done before, like in a job setting, and sometimes they'd give you an example. They would ask you to give them an example of like a security issue that had occurred at work, and I wouldn't really be able to come up with one since it was my first time. So those were like kind of the issues I encountered. So, and sometimes they would look for certain things. It's like, oh, like, are you able to work with KNIME or like a certain database that I wasn't familiar with? It's like, are you fluent in Snowflake? Are you fluent in a Tableau? So there's all these different databases that sometimes cybersecurity works along with, mainly because they contain customer data. So I was not familiar with those. But eventually, sometimes you'd either take a YouTube crash course or just sometimes employers like to hear that like you're open to learning. Not all, but some of them would like to hear. They're like, okay, so like we know this. It's like, I am familiar with this part of it. However, like because every company runs differently, it's nice to show them that like, hey, like I'm not all that aware, but I'm open to learning it. So that really helps them know that you're like open and like, okay, so she's flexible. So yeah, that's actually what helped me with my job, because originally I was not familiar with Snowflake or KNIME. However, I told my boss that within 3 months I'll be able to get some training and able to work with both databases. I did learn for Snowflake and KNIME at the time, but during that time, in between that time, they no longer needed me to use Snowflake anymore because I would just get the data directly and it would just be hashed. So it's less of a work for me. But I still learned it anyways. So learning another database was probably like one of my weaknesses when it came to interviews. It's like, okay, so like, Excel, certain things like Adobe or so forth. But it's like, okay, but do you know Snowflake? And that's when I'd get caught. And I'm like, okay, so it's not going to work. Another thing I'd have to say is the multiple interviews. You might pass with the first interviewer, but with the second interview, the second person may not really approve what you've told the first one. You might like fly by like passing colors with the first one, but with the second interview person, it's like, okay, so she knows this, but she's not exactly what we're looking for. And sometimes you'd go all the way to the third person, which I had to do. I had to do 3 interviews with 3 separate people. So it was very like, it's like, okay, like, are we going to get the job or not? Because sometimes you're like, okay, so I passed the first one, so I'm definitely about to get the job. It's like, no, there's like 2 other people you have to get approved by before they finally send you that letter, either confirming, or sometimes, unfortunately, it'd be like a letter stating that like they would like to move on with someone else.
Okay, so yes, for cybersecurity interviews, at least you're gonna go do at least 3 interviews.
Yes.
So great. Now, for what you are doing now on the job, like when you finally got the job, or even during the interview processes, aside some of the things that you didn't like naturally know, how well do you think your background in terms of the training that you went through, how well did it prepare you for the job? And then also, I mean, eventually you were able to get the job, so we'll just stick with the job, not the interview. So how is that helping you on the job now?
It helps me a lot. I work with InfoSec. I'd say like about 80% of the stuff that I went through right now with your course at Eretmis is what comes up at work with InfoSec. So sometimes InfoSec would encounter a vulnerability and they would just use certain terms or certain like databases that I've heard of at some point. I don't necessarily use them, but I'm familiar with them. However, it trickles down into like my area of work when it comes to tackling the vulnerability. So yeah, it was really helpful, very helpful.
Okay, great. And also, so from your plan of, okay, I'm stuck, right? If not nursing school, then what am I going to do, to deciding to switch to cybersecurity? Why cybersecurity? Like, were you doing something IT already, or were you always a fan of IT and you decided to look at that side?
It's funny that you say that. I'm actually the exact opposite. When I was younger, everyone was like, okay, so like, like technology is where it's at. People, they work a 9 to 5, they are able to enjoy their weekends. They have like a nice work-life balance, as compared to like healthcare workers. Like, I know they have a lot of work, and that's actually what I really wanted to do in the beginning. Sometimes they don't necessarily have like the best work-life balance. And that's what I was told when I was younger. It's like, okay, come on, like you got to do technology. You have to be an engineer. Like you have to be an engineer. I never saw myself doing something tech related because I was more of like a customer service person. I like being hands-on. I like being with people. But I think like as the years like progressed, I realized sometimes it's like, coming back home to like after 5 when like it's dark, it's nice because you get to go to sleep in your own bed, and so something like that. Like it has like a nice work-life balance. When you have vacations, you can go on vacations and completely not have to worry about work, or like having to come into work the next day immediately because you finished PTO or something. When I worked as a PSR, a patient service representative, I used to work late hours. So that would result in me getting home like around 1 o'clock sometimes in the morning, but still having to open the next day at 7 a.m. And that really kind of, you start to lose interest in just the job itself because you don't have time to either like, see your friends, or you're unable to see, like my mom lives in Texas. So sometimes I was unable to see her for like a long time because I wouldn't necessarily have that proper balance. But when I started to like compare the two things, and like I don't actually have a friend in tech either, but that's kind of like what pushed me to be the first one in tech. I'm like, let me try this. What could really happen? If anything, I could go back to my nursing school. It's not like my credits would go anywhere. I was like, I could take the HESI test again, start like on a fresh slate. But once I got in, it really changed my life. And my sisters, I actually have 3 younger sisters, and both of my sisters are doing something tech related right now. They were both in medical as well.
All right. All right. So your decision to move into cybersecurity has really paid off. Now, like what was your I mean, you kind of spoke about your work-life balance. Like how many hours were you working prior to this, and in your current job, how many hours are you working? And then also in terms of like salaries, like what is the jump between
Yeah,
you're doing and the hours and this and the like the jump, if you can
yeah.
elaborate on that.
Yeah, of course. So when I worked as a PCR, a patient service representative, sometimes, so the facility would open at 7 till 11. It's an urgent care center, so we're also open on the weekends and the holidays as well. So sometimes you get robbed of a holiday, you get robbed of your birthday at times, and weekends, Sundays, I would come in 7 a.m. and I'd be the only one covering that shift. Let's say if the person with me, for some whatever reason, calls out, I have no backup. So I would check in over 100 patients on my own. So that itself was a big load, but still I would have to come in the next day. So every week I didn't have a standard amount of hours to work. Every week it was a different amount of hours. Sometimes some weeks I'd work like way more than 40. And then sometimes due to budget reasons, I'd get cut and I would go home with like 25 hours, which was kind of not really the best type of lifestyle for me, because I had to pay rent. So there's not like an exact amount of money I would have at the end of the month. It would always fluctuate. So it kind of ruined things in a sense that, oh, I could only do this month. Next month, like we're short. Like I have my hours short. cut from me, so I can't do this. I can only pay for like my basic necessities. I can't spend anything on wants. So like no shoes, no extra like, going to travel or anything like that. I have to lay off on that until the next month when I probably could pick up an extra shift or so. But working a 9 to 5 in cybersecurity now, I have my exact 40 hours, Saturdays and Sundays. You do not get a call stating, hey, somebody's called out. Like, can you please cover so-and-so's shift? Like, you do not get that call. You know you have the Saturday and Sunday to yourself. Every national holiday is your own. There are times where we get to work from home for a full week. So for Christmas, that whole week, I think Christmas landed on a Monday. That whole week we were able to work from home. So I was able to travel down to Texas with my computer and work from home for a week. But New Year's was the next week as well. So that was 2 weeks at home. That was just like a fantasy for my mom to see me at home for 2 weeks. But yeah, in terms of salary, it was about a 40K jump. So yeah, that was pretty crazy for me to experience as well, because people typically see that like after years of hard work. Not that I didn't do hard work, but I'm just stating like it'd be like years of college and certifications, and then you start work. But sometimes like you'd either have to pay debt, so like you don't get to see that full amount until years and years later. But I got to see that amount, and it changed a lot of things for me in my life, which I'm very grateful for.
All right. So we appreciate you sharing and like taking us through all those aspects of your career switch, and then also what you're doing now and work-life balance and all that. Now I'm gonna bring everybody on also to be able to ask questions. People might have other questions that I might not even think of. So please, if you have a question, you raise your virtual hand, and then we give you the floor, and Naomi will answer your questions as you ask them. So Kweku, please go ahead.
Hey Naomi, congratulations.
Hi, thank you.
That was quite a story there, and I think it's gonna help a lot of folks. But I have one question though.
Yeah.
So I heard you saying, I think Dr. You said you took the security class. Now that you're working as a customer data privacy analyst, do you have any data privacy certification under your belt or something, or are you still using the security class?
Currently, that's a good question. Thank you for asking. Currently, I'm still using the Security Plus certification. However, I do plan on going back to see what other certifications I could do. Mainly because it also helps with your salary, like for a salary increase, and also helps you understand your own work better. But as for right now, I'm still using that certificate.
Got you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Uchi, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Edu. Congratulations, Naomi. Great story. Happy for you.
Thank you.
My question is, now that you're in the job, what is their career pathway for you? Have they spoken to you like your manager? What would be the career path forward, in the company to move up and things like that?
Thank you for your question. So for right now, my role is the only one that exists right now, and I'm still doing contracts. So it's like I think every 12 months I sign a contract. I'm looking forward to a full-time position, and after a full-time position, probably towards like a mid-level position. So maybe I could work alongside with someone else, and we could tackle the workload for two.
Okay, great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you for the question, Uchi. So for the certifications, somebody was asking about that. So for most cybersecurity jobs, right, some will require you to have, they'll have on there, maybe if you have these certifications, they are nice to have. Some will have it, set in stone. You need to have this. Mostly for those, it will be companies that are using those certifications to win contracts, or their contract that they have forces them to have a number of people who have those certifications. But certifications, they are good to have, right? But your focus is don't just pile up certifications without having the knowledge and skill to back it up. So that is where most people also get it wrong, right? They will just go ahead and get certificate upon certificate, and they don't have the knowledge to back it up. So don't really get too much ahead of yourself. So if you are driving, you don't want to go in the night, you don't want to go faster than your light can see, right? So build yourself, like what Naomi is doing right now. She has Security Plus. That's what most people or everybody will start with. She's eventually going to build herself up. And when she does get a certificate, she has the knowledge and skill to back it up. Alan, please go ahead.
Yes, great job, Naomi. I just want to check. Did I hear Dr. Adu say correctly that you were going to be doing the last week?
You are coming in broken. Please ask
Oh,
your
sorry
question.
about that. Let me ask the question again. Let me take it off this Wi-Fi, put it on regular. I thought Dr. Adu said that you were going to be doing the internship workshop that we just started last week as a part of your matriculation, through the academy. Was that correct?
Yes, yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to collaboration in our internship and workshop. Thank you so much for sharing your
Me
story,
too.
and it's definitely inspiration to us all. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Alan. And I think someone was asking, was it? Oh, Andrew, you can ask your question.
Yeah, Naomi. I followed you and congratulations, by the way. And I followed you on LinkedIn.
Oh wow, okay, thank you. I'll follow back.
So it's quite an inspiring message you gave this evening. And I personally think it's motivated me on my journey. I've spoken to Dr. Edu a while back about what I'm doing. I wanted to do in terms of that. And I think it's pushed me further. So
I'm so
thank you for the
happy.
encouragement.
My pleasure. I'm so happy to hear that.
Okay. I found your position. The question that I had before was what the company of the name of your company you're working for and your position, and I found it on LinkedIn. So thank you. That is
My
answered.
pleasure. I'm glad.
And Dr. Edu, the next question is to you. So you were saying not to consider the certifications as much as getting the experience, but then how do you get a company to hire you to get that experience? Because I don't know about other people, but when you go on social media, there are a lot of advertising that says companies, organizations will hire you and train you. But then when you click onto the site and you go to them, each and every one of them is trying to get you to enroll with them for a certification. And they all have huge sums of money. They are quoting for you to get in there. So when you say that, it's one of a million that you will get a startup company that will hire you and then train you, and just like she's doing along the line, you get your certification. But if you don't have, like, especially those of us who are switching from other skills to this, how do we do that?
Okay, so great question. And Naomi is a really good example, right? Like I was saying, for Naomi, she didn't even go through the whole entire program that we had for her. She's coming back to finish it up, right? So she went through the course. The internship is supposed to give you that work experience, right? So that was why I was asking her about the audits and stuff. In the internship, you do audits, you do, incident response and all that. Now, even for her company that she interviewed for, right? Most people get that perception they are going to take you in and train you. They are not going to train you out of a vacuum. So you have to come with something. You have to bring something to the table, right? So Naomi, they could see she had the knowledge and some skill coming in, right? So they could work with her. She was trainable. So you can train somebody who knows how to drive a bus, but you don't want to, entertain somebody who has not driven in his life to, employ him to train him to drive a bus, right? So if you are switching, what I was talking about when it comes to certifications is this: it's good as you are starting off, go through a training, take a certification like Security Plus. At least that shows that you know, you are doing your due diligence and you are also paying your dues. And two, mostly taking Security Plus and passing, it is not just passing the exam, but it shows that you have the knowledge and skill that comes with what you need to pass a Security Plus, right? What I was trying to say is that some people, they probably have just went through like the touchlines, you know, not really taking a full-blown course that somebody is guiding them through. Maybe there's some self-learning here and there. You don't know what you don't know. Take Security Plus, will pass. Jump onto maybe CISSP, will pass. Jump onto this. Now they've accumulated all these certifications, but then you ask them, a kindergarten certification, they are all over the place, right? And now they hide behind because I don't have experience. Experience starts from knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, you can move into skill and then move into abilities, you know, which ability skills what we consider experience, right? So you don't have to, you have to build yourself gradually. If you go through a training that really, you know, takes time and break everything down for you to understand it also at that level, lawyers will see that, because during interviews, nobody's going to ask you to do anything. They are asking you what you know. So if you don't know anything, don't blame it necessarily on. There are some questions that will border on, if you've not done it, it's hard to speak to, right? But some questions, if like probably I just ask you, what is your take on the CIA trial? Or like, what is your understanding of risks? And you are going around in circles and you come back and you tell me because you don't have experience. I mean, Naomi is doing the job. Nobody is coming there to, you know, break CIA trial to her, right? All that is the knowledge piece, right? So if you have that and that understanding on the job, even things that you've not encountered before, when you get to know them, now you're able to refer to what you know. Oh, okay, so this is this is that, right? So it makes you easy to train on the job if you have a very solid background, right? So some like companies that are, and also for like jobs that you're applying to, if you're applying to jobs that are requiring somebody with 10 years of experience and thereabout, I mean, then I don't know what you're doing. If you're starting off, you have to gauge yourself, right? Know what jobs to apply to and which ones are out of your league. Right? So that would be my advice. But I think like, it's a very good example. For her, she maybe some of the like some of the little problems that she's encountered, it was because she didn't go through the internship before. Even if she was in the internship and she was applying for jobs, she would have scaled like most of those little issues that she was having. But like I was saying, you know, like Naomi is the magic lady. She just comes in, goes out, and then do her own stuff. And she's a self-starter, right? Somebody who can. That is why she's able to function in like the job that she's doing. There nobody was there, nobody started it. She's the pace setter over there, and she's able to do that because what maybe probably most of you are not getting, she's cultivated that. Maybe I don't know if that is her nature, or she cultivated that through school and stuff. But she's somebody who loves to research, dig into stuff, you know, learn for herself, right? So if you give her the push, she's going to run with it, right? If you show her how to make $1 million, and she's going to come back to you in 5 years with $1 billion. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. So we're going to go to some other questions from Philip. Philip, please go ahead, and then Mike and Odro and Kweku will go. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Edu. This is Philip. I didn't attend Eretmis. I only come here to learn. I'm already in the cyber field, and thank you very much for doing a great job. I wanted to answer the same question you just answered right now, that you did not say that people shouldn't take certifications. However, they should be able to speak, to back up their certifications with what they know. Else, even when you get a job and you get to the field, everybody is going to know that you don't know anything, unless you are ready to run through vigorously and be humble enough to learn from everybody. So, I just wanted to put that in real quick. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Yeah, so, and still to maybe not to kill it too much, but still to add to that, it is for everybody on here. Everybody on here is pretty smart to be able to pass, you know, certifications that you don't really have the knowledge and skill to back up. If we give you some prep work or some, you know, some questions that is really going to help, you can just memorize those and go past. And that is how a lot of people get their certifications, right? So But what people fail to understand is that you are the certification, not a piece of paper you are holding. So on the job, the piece of paper cannot help you if you don't know what you are supposed to be doing. Or if they are, so you are at the table, they are discussing cybersecurity stuff, and you are there looking at their face like they are speaking Chinese, right? But there you are, holding Security Plus, CISSP, CISA, SIM, and they ask you something and you are smiling and giggling because you don't even understand what they are saying. Now they'll start to scratch your head. How did this guy get all these, right? And worse, there are some people who are even paying others to sit for the certifications for them. I don't know if you pay somebody to go to medical school for you, and once they are done, you will use that certificate to apply to become a doctor in a hospital. What are you going to do when the patient comes to your practice, or like somebody collapses and they are calling you, right? So thank you, Philip. We'll go to Quentin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what Dr. Du was saying, and then tie that into what Naomi said. I mean, if we all listen to her, she even went to the extent of saying that she actually the first person to take that role. It means that she was able to speak to something, and for that matter, they were able to create something for her. So sometimes it's not about the certification. If you're able to speak to the issue, the concepts, I'm sure, who knows, whoever might be interviewing you might create something for you that you don't even know. And then also she said that even though she didn't have any knowledge about the databases and all that, she was able to speak to the boss and said, look, if you give me the chance, I can make it happen. And I think that's why she's still working there. So just to say, we shouldn't be so much focused on the certifications, get the knowledge, understand the concepts, speak to that when you go for interview. And I'm sure you can get through. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Kweku. And like I always say, everybody is eventually going to get a cybersecurity job if you look hard enough, right? There's a company that is dying to have you, and that you are also going to be very happy working for, right? So that also, with that being said, and with all the cybersecurity jobs that are out there, it doesn't mean they are handing it out as candy. You have to prove yourself and show that you can, deliver. So, and that is exactly what Naomi did. Steve will ask your question, and then we will ask more questions, take a little bit more of Naomi's time, and then we'll let him. Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks very much, Dr. Edu. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, congratulations, Naomi. This is really inspirational. I have 2 questions for you. The first question is, do you have are there performance indicators at work? Like, for example, is there are there 2 things that they are looking at to determine whether you are successful in your job, the job that you're doing? And for example, are there periodic reviews in terms of your work? And also, secondly, how long did the present job that you have, how long did the interview process take?
Yeah. So, to look at my performance, I typically have a meeting scheduled every so often. So I'd say about every 3 months, I'd have to meet with my either the VP, CEO, the InfoSec director, and regional manager for data privacy, along with the local lawyers. That happens typically every 3 months. So I believe that just indicates my performance in general. And then, I'm sorry, can you repeat your second question?
The second question was the length of the interview. You said you had 3 stages of the interview.
Yeah.
So how long did it take totally?
Yeah, so the interview process probably took a good 3 weeks because it was 3 individual people. Every week it was 1 person, and since they're hybrid as well, I had to wait till Tuesday. So Monday was working from home, so I couldn't really do an interview then. So it'd be the first Tuesday, the second Tuesday, and the third Tuesday. I met with someone, and by the end of day that Tuesday, they were able to give me a decision.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very inspirational.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. So, Naomi, one question. If you encounter, give us a scenario of maybe something that you encountered on the job you had no clue. How did you go about it? Like for things that you don't know or like you've not really come across, how do you go about tackling such issues? You have almost 100 plus vulnerabilities that you are dealing with, right? How do you go about coming up? Because there are some that you probably wouldn't have any clue how to go about it.
Yeah.
How like you're able to come up with that or pull that off?
Yeah. So, okay, so typically I would look at the issue, and since it's me and my boss, typically I would let him know that there's like, okay, like I never say like I don't know something because I don't want to seem like I'm just completely clueless. Even if I am, I'm always like, okay, so I'm not really sure about this. So then he would think I have an idea, and we start to work things out, either like just talking about it, or like we're like, okay, so like maybe we should reach out to this department to see. If not, I would typically research it, either go on Google or watch like a quick YouTube video to see. But yeah, like one of the keys that I took working at the job is never to say like you don't know something. It's always, I'm not quite sure about this, but let me get back to you. Like if you say let me get back to you, you have all the time in the world to go do your own research and then come back with an answer, or come back with an answer that you feel is fit and you're able to discuss and come up with a solution.
Okay, thank you. Francis, please go ahead.
Doc, I have this problem which I want to ask. Maybe you guys have experience. I keep learning this thing, and like I've learned, I've said the exams, I've passed, I'm having my certification. But one thing is like, anytime I try to recall, try to do things on my own, like the last time how I was explaining to you, I do styles, I try to help other stuff, but in no time I forget everything. If I don't do it for a short while, I forget everything. Trust me, it's just one or two I do remember. So I don't know if I'm the only person facing that problem, because I was doing this metasploitable, everything scanning. But the next time, if I come, maybe I leave it for a month or something, I find it a bit difficult with certain things like the CHR. I have certain questions you ask me. I know certain questions. I know, but I have to go back again.
Okay.
So
Francis,
I want to know if it's something I have to do, or I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Great question. Maybe I'll have Naomi give her insight on this, and then I'll give my insight on this. But I think I know the answer to your question. So Naomi, how did you study, and what techniques did you use that help?
So when I studied, I had a journal. I would have a journal, so I'll write down either like the main points about it, or I'll write a lot. I know I write a lot, but typically the ones where we have to focus on, I'd either highlight it and have flashcards to better memorize them, because I believe with your course, at the end of every course, there's a test. So after taking the first 2 tests, I think is when I realized I was studying wrong, because I wrote too much and I wasn't retaining anything for the test itself. So based off of the test itself, I was able to like find a better way to start highlighting and just keep that journal on me. I would review it every week, because yeah, like you said, if I go for a long period without looking at my notes, I do not recall in time for test 2. Like I would start like the second portion of the training, and I don't recall what I just took in test 1. You can ask me the same question, I will have no idea, even though I probably answered it right on the test. So I think that's what has to do with like memorization. I think I only memorize it for the test. And so I wouldn't be able to retain it. But for the test that I took in the end to pass, it was like a completely different way of studying. And I think you gave me practice exams, so that literally condensed a lot of the learning material into like pages to go into and highlight.
Okay. Thank you, Naomi. So I'm also going to add to this. Now, learning, right, is just like when you are learning, you are building muscle memory, right? So we can easily liken that to going to the gym. Try to be very fit or masculine, or build some muscles. And so let's say you are going to the gym to build muscles, right? If I go maybe an hour today, and I was able to lift, maybe I went for 3 days in a row. I started off, I was able to lift 5 pounds. By 3 days, maybe I was able to lift 15 pounds. If I stop for a week, and everybody will be different, but this is general for everybody anyways. If I stop for a week or 2 weeks, when I go back, I wouldn't be able to lift the 15 pound anymore. I probably have to start back from 5, or probably even less than 5, right? Because my muscles have, like the memory that I was building for them and what they knew they could do. Now all that has gone. So your strength at that point would have gone down. And for anybody who is a gym rat, I used to be a gym rat a while ago, right? I could lift upwards of almost like, I think 350, almost 400 pound bench. But when I, that was way back in the day. But when I stopped for even 2 weeks, it'll reduce, right? So reason why I'm saying this is this. For anybody trying to get into cybersecurity or any field for that matter, if you don't stay with it every day and you put it off for like a week, come back, every time it's going to be new. Every single time it is going to be like you never even looked at this or studied it. So stay with it. Even no matter how busy you are, if you have to even look at it for 30 minutes a day because you're so super busy today, just at least do one question or one practice. Just stay with it. It has to be in your face the whole time, right? Either than that, you feel like maybe probably you are going crazy, but you are not, frankly, right? It is like that. Cybersecurity or any field is a language. Any field that you want to get into is a language. So the health side, to be a nurse, to be a doctor, is a language you are learning, right? If you don't stay with it, and you do, once you do maybe 1 week really hardcore, and then you put it off for a week or 3 days, come back to it, it will be everything that you've studied is like you never studied. That is how your brain functions, right? So for some people, maybe probably they have photographic memory, they will be able to capture some, and even for those folks, they will still struggle at a certain point if they don't stay with it the whole entire time, right? So you are learning a new language, terminologies, terms, acronyms. You have to stay with it, right? Stay with it. At least if you're not even able to study, watch some YouTube video about some cybersecurity concepts. You hear people talk about cybersecurity, right? Something on those lines. But if you put it off for what Francis was saying, he said he put it off for a month, like a month. Then you are, you are starting from scratch at that point, right? So it's like you are learning. Like I used to be really good at programming, Python and the rest. But I put it off for a while. Sometimes when I want to go back, even for Bash, I'm like, I don't even remember my commands. I'm that rusty because I put it off, right? And I was very proficient, right? So if you don't stay with it, then you're gonna run into issues. So Francis, you are not crazy, and you're not the only one. It's like that. You just have to stay with it until it becomes muscle memory, right? Until it becomes muscle memory. So like I was saying, if you go to the gym long enough and you do certain weights long enough, right? Even if you're doing, let's say maybe 300 pound bench press, when you go back after 2 weeks or 1 month, if you've done it long enough for your muscles to really have that muscle memory, although you cannot easily pull off the 350 or 250 you used to do, at least you can do 280 or 250, right? But until you get that down in muscle memory, it's always going to be new. You have to start from scratch, right? So keep staying with it, keep staying with it, keep staying in it. Once it sticks, it becomes muscle memory, and that's it. You just build upon it, right? So Francis, you are not the only one in this boat. So
Dog, I hear you. I will try to keep on it always. So I hope we start this internship, and I know I'm gonna keep on.
Yeah, and even like Sandra put it in here, you forget even your password if you don't use it for a week. Like if I don't use mine for 3 days, I don't remember. It's like you're not even like the person who created this password. But they're thinking, date of birth? No, you really don't even remember. So I mean, you just have to stay with it, right? Diallo, please go ahead. Please unmute yourself, Diallo. You unmuted and you muted again. All right, we'll move on to Kweku. Please go ahead, Kweku.
Yeah, Naomi, I forgot to ask one thing. Did I hear you saying that your company also operate in Europe too?
Yeah. So Luxon is also, its base is in Geneva. However, they have multiple stores set up globally. So every continent.
Okay. So what has been your experience so far with respect to GDPR? Because you talked about the fact that
Yes.
Yeah, what's been your experience so far? Any experience so far with that?
So with GDPR laws, we typically, so there are central companies. So whatever documents that we have is written in GDPR. So it would be like either the years that are written for there for like, okay, like for data deletion. But here in the US, we have to abide by CCPA laws. So it's just comparing the two sometimes, speaking to our local lawyer to find out like what to do in certain situations. But we do work with, I don't work directly with GDPR. It's kind of translating it over to CCPA. That's the most I've done with it.
Say that you said CC, what's the name again?
CCPA. It's from California. It's California protection.
California database standard or law.
Yeah, okay. California is the strictest one in North America at this point. Canada has PIPEDA. Every state has their own laws, but the most strict one right now, the umbrella, is CCPA.
Gotcha. I thought I should ask that since you mentioned Europe. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
No worries.
Naomi, I had a question.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You said that you were matching the GDPR to the CCPA. So what specifically were you looking at when you were doing that match, and what part of and did that involve DISA at all?
Yeah. So currently we're working on a database called OneTrust to figure out which databases or like which vendors and companies' assets have access to personal information. GDPR is included mainly with DNS, so that's do not sell my data. So if the database contains the customer's personal information, under GDPR, we have to delete it. If they're a European, we typically send it over to Europe. But for an example, if it's a European customer wanting for their information to be deleted, we have 45 days to delete it. However, if it's local and CCPA, there's 30 days. And if you have to extend it, you have to let the customer know, and it can go up to 60. But that was just like one example in terms of like how we work with GDPR here in North America.
And the CCPA has the exact same law?
Similar laws.
Okay.
They're not exactly the same, but GDPR is the most strict one. For CCPA, it'd be like for data deletion. Let's say like the customer hasn't been an active customer since 6 months. I think under CCPA, don't quote me on this, I'm not sure, but after 5 years, you can delete that customer's information fully. However, for GDPR, I think it's a couple more years. I think after 13 years, you have to completely wipe out the person. Maybe 7 years, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, thanks.
If Diallo is able to unmute, you can ask your question now.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Naomi. Thank you for congratulations for having this type of job, and we both looking to get this.
Thank you.
What can you advise for someone that during your challenges that you're facing from the first time you start this program with Dr. Edu and until you land to your first job?
The advice I'd give is probably to be persistent. Is that the type of question you're asking?
Yes, yes. How long it take you, and then what advice can you provide for people that saying, oh, today I applied, they tell me, unfortunately, can I still keep applying or doing interviews? What challenge did you face before getting your first job?
So one thing that I will advise is to always be persistent. There was like a lot of reject files in my interview journey. I had finished my certificate in June, and like Dr. Adu said, I did not join the internship training, nor did I complete I think it's a mock interview that Dr. Adu also offered. I didn't do that either, so I had like no training. That was on me, by the way. But from June to about October, I was scrambling for a job because it was like, okay, so like I would think one company was about to take me, and then like it'd be the second interview that I would fail. But I would actually write those questions down sometimes to see, because most of the time they would ask you similar questions. So if you already write that question down from the previous interview, have your own answer ready, you will just be prepared, and you would have a better interview with whoever's going to interview next, because now you have like answers, like you were certain about these answers. So it's a lot of trial and error, but you can't give up. There's like so many other sites that you can apply on too. So I was strictly on Indeed, but you can apply directly onto the company. I printed out some of my resumes as well, because in case like you can go to buildings sometimes you'd meet like a friend of a friend, like you never know. It's New York City, so I mean for me, but I had my resume printed to have it on hand for anyone. There's Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn. Sometimes reaching directly out to the employer helps if they have that person listed in the company. It would be like Recruiter, so I would directly email her and send her my resume as well, just to cut the process, and it works out. There's always something that's going to work out. So yeah, I would say mainly persistence.
Okay, another question I have is you have to rebuild your resume for like many different job titles, or you just keep it like for, let's say, if you are looking for security analyst or SOC analyst or like compliance, is your resume still have the same standard level of those things, or you just have multiple different resumes?
Actually, that's a good question. I just had one resume, but Dr. Adu also helped me with a cover letter template that I would have to change. However, not many companies would ask for a cover letter, but whenever they did, that's where I would have to change the job title, the company's name, just a couple of things that you would change around in terms of like the description. I would change the cover letter, but as far as the resume, it was solid. I was using the same resume for every job position.
Okay. During your interview, have you ever been asked about your any cyber certification?
It rarely comes up. I'm going to be honest. It rarely comes up. They would read my resume before, so I think they would already know. Only a couple of times they would ask me if I was working on another certificate. But I would tell them like, like once I start work, then I could probably start another certification, because some of the certifications require you to have like 2 to 5 years of experience. I believe CISSP is one of them. So in order to, they're like, okay, so like I'd have to build my experience, but I'll tell them like, okay, so this is in progress. I just need to build the years of experience. So that's what I did mainly, but yeah.
Okay, how about the tools? Did they ask you about any tools that, let's say, are you familiar with Splunk or like Azure, Active Directory or Linux, system admin with Red Hat? Have you ever been asked about those?
I was asked if I was familiar with those, but in terms of what I did with the tools, I wasn't necessarily asked that question. I was given mainly hypothetical questions, like what would you do in this situation? So, or like they'd give you like two options. It's like, okay, so like in this situation, would you choose this tool or this tool? Certain like that's the interview question I remember.
Okay, you was a part of the previous internship, right?
I didn't join the internship. I did Eretmis training. I started it in January of 2022, and I did it for a couple of months. I believe I finished my training in 3 months. But it was the studying part that took me a while because I finished the training with Dr. Du through Eretmis, but I had to go back to like study and like create my own flashcards based off of the stuff I had in my journal. So it was the studying and the prepping part that probably took another 2 months before I took my test in the end in June. So altogether, I would say like it was about like a 5-month process.
Okay, do you remember how many applications did you put before landing your first job?
It's a lot. It was a lot because there's also different websites that I used. I think there was Dice. I was on LinkedIn. I remember I used LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and just the companies itself. My email was flooded because even if it was like like we've received your email, there was also like unfortunately, we've decided to move on with the different candidates, and then sometimes it would be for a second interview. So it was a lot of emails, to be honest, because it was several different places that I applied. But yeah, I don't remember exactly how many I applied for, but it was a lot. I can say it was a lot of.
Okay, were you like counted where you have to change your email address because probably there's another company that you applied before, they reject you, and then they put up another like a job title and you would like to apply, but since the software already have your information in the system, whenever you apply again, I think it has to reject you again. So have you ever been to those type of situation before?
No, actually, I know what you're saying, but I haven't had to do that. I didn't have to do that.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
My
And
pleasure.
congratulations again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Naomi. Could I please ask you
Hi.
one more question? Thank you
Yeah,
for indulging us.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Thank you. I was going to ask you, I know when you do quite a few interviews, sometimes you record yourself and you come back and fix those things. I've only had one IT job, so I haven't really had to do a whole lot of that. I didn't get to do a whole lot of interviews if I got that job. I had to leave it for some other things that happened. But do you record yourself and do you go back to compare, first recording to second recording and see where the gaps are and see if you've grown? Is that something you do, and how well does it work for you? I wanted to know that.
That's actually a hack that you gave me for an interview that I've taken in the future, but I haven't recorded myself actually. I'm a traditional girl. I like my pen and paper all the time. So I would have a sticky note to write down what he said, or what she said, and sometimes I'd stick it on the computer. So I would be able to see like just the touch points from the previous interview so I can recall for this one in case the same question comes up, which it typically does. But you're right, from one interview to another, I did feel myself getting better just from the way that I was responding because I didn't have a shaky answer as much unless it was a completely new question. But you start to become confident with each question that's being asked after like so many interviews. But always writing down, or sometimes I'll recall if it's something that I'm like really stuck on, I'm not going to forget that question and I will write it down. I'll either search up a good response. Like, let's say if it's a general question, I would search up a good response and see what others have said in the past before, or come up with mine, because sometimes like I do get nervous during the interview and it would be a question that I know the answer to, but just because of my nerves, I wouldn't be able to respond to them as well. So I'd go back and I'm like, oh, like I should have written this down previously. So one interview from the other, I was writing down on a sticky actually to memorize and go back and see what my answers were.
Okay. And then also, this is my last question, I promise.
You're
And
good,
we've
you're
been
good.
talking for quite a while.
No worries.
So would you tell me, like, I'm sure you've noticed some growth. Like, what do you see as two main things that have changed from the first day you started this job till today that we're speaking? Like, how have you grown professionally, and how have your technical and soft skills improved? Things like that.
Okay. I remember in the beginning of the year when I started, I was asking a lot of questions. And so that resulted in a lot of like me going home and looking back at like just researching in general. As the years progressed, as the months progressed, my like the VP would reach out to me to ask me a question and I would be able to answer it then and there, mainly from like the experience or mainly because it's happened in the past before. So I already have either the documents available or just a solid answer for him instead of let me get back to you. I'd be able to be like, okay, it's here. This is where we found it. Like just confidently respond. Yeah, and just when conducting meetings, typically I would used to have to go with my boss just for like backup in case I wouldn't know the answer to something or I would need help answering something. But I became confident in myself a little bit, I'll say, because I could conduct the whole interview and come back. And sometimes my boss himself would ask me for like certain recommendations, like, okay, like, how do you recommend we go about this? And I would see from his end as well that he's a bit more, confident in what I'm doing as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My
More grace.
pleasure.
Congratulations
Thank you.
again.
Thank you so much.
Already.
Great, thank you. I think Oduro, your hand was up, but then you keep taking it down. If you want to ask your question before we ask Naomi a few last questions and wrap it up. So was it Kwame? I'm not sure if that was Kwame, but Oduro, if you want to ask your question.
Okay, Doc. Thank you very much. So I had wanted to ask something to what was the Naomi?
Yes.
What she was just responding to some questions. I'm actually working. I didn't take the training from Dr. Dido, but a friend introduced me to him, which I'm planning to take the PCI class with him. And I've been learning a lot from here. And you guys have already talked about the certificate stuff. In fact, I had my first job. I have two jobs that I'm doing, and most of them will not require certificate. The fact of the matter is, what your training, in fact, like Dr. Du's training, is like training on the job. That is the experience that you have. So that is what I would say you guys should concentrate on. I mean, it's good to have a certificate, but most of the jobs that you do, the certificate will be there. They said you have to have this, have that. However, on all the interviews that I did, I don't remember anybody asking me, you need this certificate before we would hire you. And then she talked about when she was doing the interview, she was writing down stuff. I was actually recording whatever interview I was doing, because I realized that about 70% of the questions keep on repeating itself.
Yeah.
I can tell you, like 70%. So I did recorded it, and I'll go back and then I will. So it's actually the same stuff that they ask you. So and then also the more you have to apply. I mean, when you keep on applying and you get interviews, you get more confident. And when that is the thing, you got to apply. You got to apply, and then hopefully you get the job. But Dr. Du, I have a question for you. I'm trying to get another job, and for almost like 2 months, I've not had any interview. I don't know whether they are not hiring or my resume is. I don't know what is wrong with it. I don't know if you have any idea.
Yeah, I think the angels think you have enough. So they are pushing that one else to somebody else. Yeah, but we can talk offline and then we'll see what is going on. Right.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Go ahead, George.
Hello, Dr. Edu. Thank you. I just wanted to add to everyone on this platform that everything you're doing on this platform is worth it. We did, like I said some time back, the PCI I did, I didn't even know I had a classmate on Eretmis that I'm working with. So we're working together from Eretmis. So that shows to prove that his training is worth it. We are both from the same PCI class. And then I saw that, oh, that's him on there. And then we started talking about our experience in Eretmis. So take the class seriously, it will change your life.
Thank you, George. And George also came from healthcare to cybercare. Right. George was a traveling nurse for almost, what, 10 years, 10 plus?
Believe it when you tell them. They don't believe it.
All right. So
yes, they don't believe it. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, George. And my last question and I think Odro just took that like what I wanted to stress on when Naomi was talking about taking notes during her interviews. So for everybody looking for a job, right, this is the trick. If you're not getting interviews or they are saying we are moving on, we have to work on your resume, right? Now, if you start getting interviews, for the interviews, please make sure you are keeping track of what you are saying and what they are asking you. Because like Odro rightly said, the questions, at least 60% thereabout, is going to be the same repeat, right? So how you answer this one, you should answer it in a better way the next time, right? So you should do your own self-assessment and make sure you are getting better and better and better and better. Either than that, then you're going to be interviewing 200 times, and if you are just saying the same things and you're not getting any better, and you know yourself if you are getting better or not. Like Naomi is saying, now she can say, okay, confidently answer questions that she would say, okay, I'll get back to you, right? Because she's getting better and better. So for interviews, as you are going to whether you want to record it or immediately after the interview, write all the questions down, prepare, try to answer those questions, the ones that you didn't really do well, you know it better than anybody. Research more into it, find answers to them before you go to the next interview. Don't think you are, you are really good at talking, so you can talk in circles. And for folks who are interviewing you, hiring managers and whoever will be interviewing, they are super nice, super nice. They'll be nodding and say, okay, but they wouldn't tell you are just, speaking a bunch of nonsense, right? They are super nice. So don't think because they are nodding and saying, okay, you are convincing them, you know yourself if you are just speaking in circles. And that is if you don't prepare, right? So when you do get an interview, make sure you make that count. You record it, you write them down. Next interview, you get better. Next interview. So at least, after you've gone through a whole interview for one company, maybe the 3 interviews, if they don't pick you and you do another one for 3 interviews for another company, the maximum you should do is at least 4 interviews for different companies if you went through like the whole like lines of interviews, right? So that is my take when it comes to the interview portion of it. And I think Naomi did the same, and most folks who are on here who had to do several interviews before they got jobs, they also attest to this, right? Go ahead, Kweku, and I think Leonard will also go. Go ahead, Kweku.
Yeah, Dr. Adu, I think I just wanted to give maybe this tip. I don't also know maybe when we go for the interviews there's a point where we can also ask them questions. So at that point, you can also ask them, you can just say, hey, given what we discussed today or given my interview, so is there anything that I can clarify? I mean, sometimes you can also ask them questions too. And then based on that, you have an idea of what they're going to say, and then it can help you in your next interview too. And then also, even if they send you that letter and say, hey, we are sorry, blah, blah, blah. And that is why sometimes it's important that you get the information for those who will be interviewing you. After that, you can send them an email and say, hey, look, I appreciate you, blah, 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 but is there anything that you think that I can do to improve my chance in the future. And most of them will be happy to do that. I've done that in the past and they actually responded. So maybe we should pick that tip as well. It's really going to help. Yeah, some of them will respond to you. They will just do that.
Thank you, Kweku. Great feedback. Great feedback. Leonard, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Naomi. Hi, Dr. Du.
Hello.
Hi. My question for Naomi is, when you were interviewing, did you have some interviewers not respond to you at all? And did you go about that by trying to respond back to them, or would you just move on from there and just move on to the next interview or the next job application?
That's a really good question. Whenever they didn't respond to my application, I would wait like about a week or maybe like a week and a half, and I would let them know. I'm like, hey, like I was like, I was really interested in this position. I applied for the position. I was wondering on the status of my application. That's what I would tell them. So then they would either come up with a response, which is either like, oh no, we've moved on, or just sometimes they'd give you a direct interview. They're like, we will schedule your interview with so and so. So it has to do with luck too. So, but if it's a job that you've really been eyeing, I know there's like a lot of applications that you apply to. Keep note of the ones that you really, really want. Like, let's say like you have all the qualifications that they need, but like for some reason they're not responding. I would write them down. So you'd go back and like you're like, okay, so like I applied on the 9th, so like you'd wait like a week or so, and then you would reach back out to them. They're like, hey, I was just wondering on the status of my application. So and so, like, they're like, okay, so like sometimes you could even call them if they have like a direct line, and then they're able to pull it up in front of you because they go through so many applications, you can only imagine. So it's like, oh, like this is my name. Sometimes they pull it up and they're like, oh, like everything looks good, but we really wanted someone with 1 year of experience, or they would tell you. So it saves the hassle.
Yeah, it seems like I mainly have been dealing with recruiters. And when I would reach out to them, I would send them a thank you letter, and I would not hear a response back in most cases. And I did an interview with Zillow for PCI DSS. I think about going on 2 months now, and I recently saw a job listing for that same position that I interviewed for 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Which was kind of strange.
Yeah. You said you sent a thank you email to
Yes, to every interview that I've been on. I think I have done 5 interviews so far, and each one of them I've sent thank you letters either via email or on LinkedIn.
After the interview. And they never came back for a second interview?
No, because oftentimes that first interview, they said that it was the first and final interview because they were trying to, apparently, so they said that they were trying to fill the position as quickly as possible. But I don't know, it's just a little strange to me.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, reaching back out to them, if they have like a direct phone number that you can reach out to. If you remember the person that interviewed you, you can be like, oh, like I interviewed with so and so, and I was wondering what the status of the interview was, like if there's a second interview, because I know sometimes they don't necessarily send the thank you email back out or just let you know the status at the end of the day. So I would suggest reaching back out to them. I know sometimes they don't respond, but at least you made that effort in the end. So you've done everything that you can on your side. Because there's only so much you can do. Like you could call, you could reach back out to them.
It's in God's hands from there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Leonard and Naomi, for your response. I think there's one last question and then we'll wrap it up. I see in the chat, Dr. Morocco, if I'm getting you right, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, Dr. Edu, thank you very much. I have 2 things to say. I think I have a couple of friends on this page that you have helped them a lot, and they always encourage and talk about your academy to everybody in my hood. So I want to congratulate you for that. Secondly, I wanted to ask, maybe I don't know if somebody asked the question already. Do they ask about green card or citizenship before they hire sometimes? I just want to know that, please.
Yeah. So whenever you apply, either on the application, it will ask you, and sometimes they would ask you the same question after you've submitted the application on what your citizenship status is, whether you're a resident, green card, naturalized citizen. They also seem to ask you that typically in the beginning of the interview, or sometimes right before they finish the interview, they'll ask you that question. Oftentimes it's already in the application as well.
Oh, okay. So is there any probability that if you're a citizen, you get a job that's a green card holder, or if you're a green card holder, what is the probability?
Okay, so I think I'll help Naomi here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for cybersecurity jobs, I mean, for anywhere in the world, for you to work, you need to have permission to work authorization and all that. So now we get into that space of security, whether you are a citizen or a green card holder. I think for general cybersecurity jobs, whether you are a green card holder or a citizen, that is not what is going to get you the job, right? You are all equal. You can both do the job. You have permission to work, obviously. Now, on the government side, when it comes to some government data, which is considered sensitive or secret or classified, right? When it comes to that space, they need to give you something we call clearance, right? Now, clearance, they can only give you clearance if you're a citizen. So for such jobs, they will strictly look for citizens, right? Now, aside that, if the whole cyberspace, don't quote me on my own statistics, right? But the jobs, there are, equally more jobs on the corporate side that doesn't require you to be a citizen. As even on the government side, not all of it will require you to be a citizen, right? So citizenship, being a citizen and not being a citizen, really, if it's not on the government side that is going to border on security clearance, top secret or secret, then it doesn't really play any role. It's just, what you are bringing to the table. And if you're able to convince them that you can do the job, then they'll give it to you. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, sir.
Zinnet, please go ahead. Oh, Uchoba, go ahead. I think Uchoba had his hand up.
Yeah. Good evening, Doc.
Yes, good
Good
evening.
evening, Doc. I've been listening to all this, but I just want to have a question to Naomi. I need this clarification because it has been a problem on my neck. Most of the problem we have in this job is the technical recruiters, because they are the difficult people. I don't know, to me, they are people that I feel they are most difficult people that we can be able to penetrate. Because I just want to know what are her own challenge to pass through these technical recruiters to the next, to be able to reach to the hiring manager.
Okay,
Because they ask a lot of things.
Yeah, I think Naomi can take that, and then I'll add to that real quick. So Naomi, did you have any any of that, reaching out to, I mean, like most of the companies reaching out to you were just like recruiting companies that were trying to pitch you to some other companies?
Yes, rarely, but there's at least maybe one or two. But I preferred the ones that were direct with the company. So I can hear back, because oftentimes when they're recruited, I don't hear back from them, or I don't hear back from them after until a long time later. Like I remember I had a job already, and they asked me again if I still needed a job when I already gave my information to them.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Naomi. So, and also to add to what Ucheba was asking, and for anybody who is having the same problem, now you apply for a job on websites like Monster and the rest, and then you have a lot of calls from a certain particular place, and they are all asking, "Oh, do you want to take this job for $50 an hour?" And oh yeah, I would like to. Okay, send me your information, and that's it. Like you don't hear from them again. Now let me tell you like the secret behind all that. So those people who will be calling you and calling almost everybody, as soon as you apply on certain websites, they have your information. They will be reaching out like clockwork. So for them, they are working for a recruiting firm, right? The number of calls they make a day and the applications that they bring in to make it look like they are working is how they get paid. So they really care less whether you get a job or they push your stuff forward or not. That is not the point. They are reaching out to you just to check the block. So for those, don't get frustrated, and those calls is not gonna end up anywhere, right? So those ones, just totally ignore them. Now, if you're applying for jobs, mostly, Naomi was using Indeed, and so there are other websites and all these websites there. Mostly a trick around, preventing yourself from all these heartbreaks from so-called recruiting firms that is not going to lead to anywhere, is to apply directly to these companies, right? So I see a job posting on Indeed. Guess what? If it's from maybe Eretmis Inc., I'll go to Eretmis Inc.'s website. I'll go to careers and then or jobs, and then I'll search for that job title in there. If it is still in there, then it means the position has not been filled. If it is not in there, it means they filled the position, but it's still online, because mostly when you post a job on Indeed, LinkedIn, on all these places, you pay for it, and sometimes maybe you pay for a month or 2 months. So when they fill the position, they are not in a hurry to come and take it down because they paid the money anyways. And when their time is, due, the website owners will pull it down anyways. So that way you are not also applying to dead jobs. Some jobs are dead on arrival. So they probably filled it or they've taken it down. So if you mostly go directly to these companies' website, you'll be able to find out. Now that is a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it is like you are putting in more work, but it's going to give you better results in the shortest possible time than just to, do quick applications or one-click applications on LinkedIn, and you think you applied for 400 jobs already and nobody's reaching out. Mostly, if I'm a recruiting firm, guess what I do? I also go on LinkedIn, I also go on these job sites, and I go to the actual company sites. I'll copy their job description, come and paste it on Indeed. When you apply, I'm going to be the one drilling you and going through and making sure you meet my standard before I present you to the company for them to, also interview you. So, and sometimes if you would have gone directly to the company, they probably would have liked you better than I would. And also the questions that I'm asking you is probably even irrelevant to what they are looking for, right? But as a recruiting company, I get paid when you get hired. So I want to make sure I'm, getting the best out of the best to take to them, right? So a way to cut the middleman is, if you're applying on, and sometimes if you pay attention, right, there will be the same job that is posted under different companies on Indeed, Glassdoor, and those places. And some of the recruiters, when they reach out, they will ask you, have you applied for this same job through somebody else? No. Okay, then fine. Or have you applied directly to the company? If no, then they will proceed you, to the next step and do their own interview. So you can cut the middleman by going directly to the companies, right? Just like what Naomi was saying. So we will let Zenith go and then Diallo, and we'll wrap it up for tonight. So please go ahead, Zenith.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Edu. This is my first time here. So my question is very straight. So on the interview, did they request for like IT degree or like maybe bachelor degree, master degree, and all that?
Okay, so I think that will be a question for now, since Naomi is our honorable guest.
Hi. No, they didn't necessarily ask that question. In my interview, in my application itself, I did tell them the qualifications I had, because it would ask you like, what's the highest level of education you've completed. So from there, I was then able to add, it's like, there's also an option sometimes that says high school and some college. And it asks if I had any supporting documents. So then I'd either attach my CompTIA Security Plus certificate, or I'd go on to attach it along with my resume. So they would ask for that already in the application. And in the interview itself, they would ask me sometimes like how long ago I've received my certification, because they expire, Dr. Edu, I think you said every 3 years.
Yes.
So yeah. So they would ask you like, okay, so like how long ago did you receive your certificate? And that's how they go forward. But as far as a college degree, I never stated that I had one, nor if it was an issue, they'd bring that up in the beginning, because sometimes some companies prefer you to have the experience over the degree, and sometimes some others really care about the degree first. So it all just depends with the interview person or the employer. But usually education doesn't really come up. They do ask me sometimes, rarely even, if I have the certification, just to find out how long ago I've received it. But other than that, it's typically experience questions, such as, oh, like in this situation, what would you do? What have you done in the past to like remediate this vulnerability? Are you familiar with this database? And questions of that sort.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, Diallo, please go ahead. You'll be the last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, Dr. Edu, my question is that there is some companies online, they tell you like you have to pay some fees for them to connect you for jobs. It's like, I can give you an example. It's called Expertier Search Agent. The company called Expertier Search Agent. They tell you that you have to subscribe for fees in order for them to link you with jobs, stuff like that. Like with Lancer, you familiar with Lancer? It's a job site called Lancer.
Yes, I'm familiar with Lancer.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, were you talking to me?
No, I'm not talking to you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
How about job case? Sorry, I'm at work right now, but job case.
Oh, how about Naomi's case?
No. I'm saying like there's a lot of platforms right now. They say, okay, so you should have to subscribe in order for us to, to make companies to see your resume. The project that you have worked. They make you pay some fees. Is this the right thing, or is just hackers that's doing it? I can give you a site called Expertier Search Agent. That's the name of it.
Okay, so somebody said in the chat that you should run like Usain Bolt from such companies. So run as fast as you can. Yeah, somebody just said run as fast as you can, like run faster than Usain Bolt from these companies. Right now, what I would say is you don't need to pay anybody to apply for a job. Right? You can go to these, I mean, Indeed and all these other sites, they are free. And they are the same jobs that these companies that are telling you to pay or subscribe, it's the same jobs that they are listing over there, right? So it's not like they have any special relationship with the companies. So they'll present their candidate and the company will take that candidate. It doesn't really work that way. So, I mean, they are doing their own business, but, like I'm telling you, you really don't. And if you think you don't want to do the legwork, but you just want to push everything to them and they will do the magic, there's nothing like that. You have to do the legwork. You have to apply. You have to do the interview. So, those people, they are just doing that for their own business model. But frankly, I would just go to websites that are not charging anything to find these jobs. You can even go to Google. Just type in there cybersecurity jobs within my state, or cybersecurity jobs within my area, or cybersecurity. It's just going to, it is going to populate and bring up a lot of job openings as well. So
okay.
on those sites,
thank you so much, Dr. Edu.
Yes, All right. So now we are about to wrap up. Naomi, if you can give us your last words, and for us, you can also share with us your plans for the future, right? Where you plan to take your cybersecurity career to, and then your last words for everybody, and then for most especially for folks, guys and girls who, ladies and gentlemen, who want to pursue the same path that you are on, right? So first, your goal for cybersecurity, your own personal goals for cybersecurity, for your cybersecurity career, and then if somebody is to start from scratch like you did, what is going to be your words of encouragement or your advice for them, where to start and how to start, and then for everybody else also in general, your word, like your last words, pretty much. So you can please go ahead, Naomi, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would have to say it was a very life-changing certificate. Even though it's one certificate, you've already seen like how much my life has changed in general. And I've seen it as well. So I definitely will be coming back for more certifications. I will complete the internship. But it's really life-changing. You just have to put a lot of time. Like once you're determined, nothing is hard. You realize nothing is hard because you don't want to go back to your old ways. You have to convince yourself that there's no going back. Even if there is a safety net, you always tell yourself, you're like, if you put like just all 10 fingers in, like everything, like put everything in, determination, balance, it might be hard for some time, like a couple of months even, because it's a certification. After those couple of months are over, you will live a life where you're like, I could have taken a full year of that type of studying and class work, balancing everything, just to experience, if I knew it was going to lead to a life like this. It's a very big field. A lot of things are turning over to technology, AI, and so it's like an endless portal. Like you can get so many different certifications, take so many classes, always educate yourself. Whatever you don't know, don't ever say you don't know. Always go back and research at home for like any refreshers, sorry. But yeah, anything is possible at any age. No matter what age you are, like you don't be like, oh, like I'm too old for this, or like, oh, like I have time. Like you could start it today. Like it will literally change around with them. Your life will change within a matter of months. And I'm your testimony to, like, I'm telling you that this happened to me. So yeah, so stay focused and enjoy the journey, because you'll be able to tell your story too. And when you tell your story, you're like, wow, I never thought I'd be in a position like this to tell my story. And it makes you very happy. You know, you're determined to go even further. In terms of my goals at work, I do want to gain more certifications, hopefully land a full-time job at work, because although it's a contract, it's nice to be like full-time, because like now you know your job's 100% secure. So I'm working towards making it full-time, convincing both my boss and the company CEO that these audits need to be conducted probably on a yearly basis, because, you know, year over year, there's probably new vulnerabilities that we never thought were coming. There's new technology every year. So just to stay on top of things, to make my job title like relevant, so I can stay and work on tackling those, learning more, gaining more experience. More experience leads to more salary, so the door just keeps opening up, so you get to enjoy your life even more. But yeah, that's
All
what I
right.
have to say. And I really appreciate Dr. Adu for your training course. I really appreciate it. Every time I reached out, you were always there with a helping hand. And it was a very smooth process, I must say. Of course, you have to take matters into your own hands as an individual. Like Dr. Du did provide the teaching, the training material, but you are the one that is responsible for keeping up with that when it comes to practicing, when it comes to revising, when it comes to creating your own flashcards, and looking back and studying, and then holding yourself accountable. Like if you did not study, like you said you're going to study today, tomorrow you're going to study twice as hard. Probably if you usually study an hour every day, but you didn't study yesterday or the past 2 days, you have to add those hours to yourself so you don't lie to yourself. But that's what I would have to say in total. Be true to yourself, be honest, stay persistent, and it will all come. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you very much, Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all the insight that you've shared, and then also a very amazing story. And for us in the Eretmis family, Naomi is the magic lady. By all accounts, she will just take the ball and run with it, right? So we really appreciate all the insight and the vast, knowledge within this short space, short time that you've been able to accumulate, and also the experience that you are gaining from what you are doing now on the job as a data security analyst, right? So for everybody else who also contributed, showed up, it's Friday night, you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here. We appreciate you, and like I always say, we promise you are always going to gain something out of this. And if Naomi, you do us the honors, you can please post your LinkedIn in the chat, and
yeah, of course.
Yeah, people can also reach out and get some more insight from you as well, right? So for everybody on here looking to switch careers into cybersecurity, Eretmis Academy is the place to be. And for PCI training, now we are also doing a cybersecurity business owner training. So you can also check that out on our website. We started our first cohort, which is going to be pretty exciting when they are done and they are all able to set up cybersecurity companies, and we see them grow. Right. We appreciate everybody's time. It's 9:08. So we are wrapping up for tonight. Thank you very much. Have a blessed weekend, and we'll meet again next week, Friday night, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of Cyber Chat. And we promise it's always going to be very educative. Have a great night, everyone. Signing off. We will meet again next week. Good night.
Great night.
Yeah, good night, bro.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Naomi.
Good night.
Thank you, Duncan.
Good
Thank
night,
you, Naomi.
everyone.
Thank you, Doctor.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Edu.